I mean, I am shocked by the accessibility of extreme porn that apparently young people have these days. I don't do anything really on social media, so I have to take your word for it that it is gross, it's terrible. I misread it at the beginning when I read the paper this morning. I thought that the parents were going to be in it, and I thought, I can imagine my children if I said, I'm going to make this porn thing. It's like gross. I still
Jack
think...
would literally leave home.
Yeah. But I still think that children would be embarrassed almost that their parents are making this so-called soft porn. However, from my point of view, I mean, the closest I ever... And this is true, I'm going to sound like really boring, but the closest when I was growing up I ever got to porn was in terms of Lady Chatterley's Lover. And a friend of mine, we were allegedly doing our geography homework, but we had the book underneath. Anytime the parents came in, the geography books went back. But my friend made the mistake of putting the book in her pocket, her blazer pocket, the next day, and both of us were banned from assembly and the college for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that would have been a big scandal.
But I think it really is a major problem these days. And
I worry, you know, I've got a teenage son, and I do worry about the type of pornography that is there, the extreme pornography. And my biggest concern with young boys and young men is the image that they may glean about women from watching those. And so, but to me, you know, making a slightly sanitised version, to me, doesn't really help. I mean, it's an interesting experiment. They're calling it an ethical porn film. I go, well, is there any such thing as an ethical porn film?
Could I just pick up on one of your points?
You can't change it, Gloria. It's
no,
there.
No, I
so my idea
that.
is you need to educate your boys in the real world. You know, I can't edit life for him, so I can't edit pornography. My point is that I discuss the things with him openly. I answer his questions if he asks. I say things like, you know, what you might see in a pornographic film is not necessarily what happens in real life. You can't expect that all women behave like that or will do those things.
But
so
can I pick up on that point? Because on this programme, I think maybe about 6 months ago, we were talking about a stepdaughter of one of the panellists, and they said that she'd lost 2 lovely boyfriends because she wasn't hairless. Because she still had hair on the important parts of her body, etc. And I was appalled at that, to think
but
that...
that's from pornography.
I know it is, and that's picking up on your point. That is what they're learning. That's what women should look like. I mean, forget about their personality or how, you know, how they get on together. I just thought that was awful. I was quite shocked at that, really.
But I don't think that you'll change people's perception by making a different kind of pornography. It all comes down to education. It all comes down to showing people, you know, celebrating all the different ways that our bodies are. And I remember, you know, when The Joy of Sex came out and had all these diagrams of people actually doing it. Oh, my goodness. You said, oh, you can do it that way, you can do it that way. And it was
and your parents probably would have been horrified if they thought you were looking at that.
Oh, no, my
parents
told me nothing about sex. I think my mother had a pamphlet in her knicker drawer she thought I might find, you know, by accident. No, it was absolutely never discussed in our house. And, you know, like Gloria, the way that I read erotic literature and found out a lot about sex was where a lot of books were banned in the 1960s, so I got a job in the library after school. Because the minute the book came off the banned list, who was #1 in the queue to read it?
But that's my point, is that you find out.
And the thing is, what you've just said there about the whole generation thing, it's always been there. In some form or other, porn has always been there.
True.
And like you were saying, you know, I just think if you're talking to your kids, if your kids know they can come to talk to you about anything and not be embarrassed, and you're not going to be embarrassed, then that's all you can hope for, really. You know, I'm sure I don't want to say, 'cause my boys are at home now going, Mother, don't say that. But, you know, I'm sure they have watched it, you know, they're grown men now. But I haven't noticed them.
Too.
They still have, you know, a respect for women.
Britain's the second biggest consumer of porn, following the United States.
The second biggest,
so they are
biggest
watching it.
consumer of pornography, following the United States. So, you know, that's my point, is that it's there. I can't stop Jack seeing it.
No, but women watch it as well. But my point is the discussion so far has all been about men getting these artificial ideas of women's bodies, just as because when I was 12 or 13, I had an artificial idea of what women's bodies were like, because we only saw images, like you said earlier, Ruth, of Playboy women with giant bosoms, and you thought anything less than a giant pair up here was a failure. absolute failure.
It's always going to be there, though.
Yeah,
all of
I
those
think it's always-
insecurities.
Yeah, and I think, you know, they cover things like this now in PHSE at school, which I think is healthy, because we always say, you know, talk to your kids, talk to your kids. Some parents can't talk to their children or find it
all the
awkward. Or
information's
I think the most important thing out of it, though, is what you've really been covering, is that it's the image that young people get from watching this pornography on social media, and it's what they think. I mean, like we're talking about, girls have to be hairless. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And also, you know, to teach boys, as Colleen was talking about, abuse, you know, about not abusing people, both men and
there's
women, girls
consent
and
issues.
boys,
But,
you know.
yeah, anyway, it's a Channel 4 documentary coming soon, so an interesting experiment.